If you want to run n8n automation software 24/7 in your own AWS Cloud, then you are in the right place. I will show you step by step how to build and configure a virtual server in AWS and then how to set it up to run that n8n software for us. And what's the best part? It can run continuously for entire year within that AWS completely free of charge. And that's why I chose AWS as the provider for today's project. AWS is very reliable and it offers so-called free tier. So for the first year, and for the newly created accounts, you can run stuff free of charge. And even if you want to keep that server running beyond that first free year, it only then costs like $4 or $5 a month anyways, after that free year I mean. So it's not the end of the world either. Note that we already had a video showing how to run n8n locally, but that was a very basic setup where you had to be on the same network as your n8n server to be able to run and create new workflows. That was very quick and easy to build setup that you could run on your laptop or PC, but you will have a problem using external webhooks or triggers or, to be honest, any traffic that needs to be initiated from outside of your network. You would have to configure some additional third-party tools to make it happen. What we are building today is something different. It's a solution where the n8n instance is available over the internet, so you can access this server from anywhere in the world, which means you don't have to be at home or on the same local network to be able to access your n8n. I will also show you how to buy and set up a domain for our n8n service, so you can access it using something like https n8n.automationavenue.com instead of typing the IP address and the port number. By the end of this video, you will have n8n platform up and running in AWS. So let's get started. The first thing you need is obviously an AWS account. And it's very easy to create. I have a dedicated video just for that process. So if you want to follow this video step by step from now on, maybe watch that previous video first, get your AWS account ready, and only then go back to this video. And I would also say that there is another prerequisite. Although it's optional, I would suggest to set up so-called budget in AWS. Because even though our virtual server will be running free of charge, you might be tempted or you might want to use some other paid features within AWS. And that AWS budget service is there just to make sure that you are notified of any charges detected by AWS account. It's a very quick and easy process to get that AWS budget configured, so I would highly recommend that. The fact is, I will use one of those paid services today because I want to buy a domain for our n8n platform, because even though it's possible to get a free domain, free of charge, I prefer to get one directly from AWS for like $2 or $3 a year and have a proper root domain rather than some free subdomain from some third parties. And as you can see, I already have an AWS account, I already have budgets configured, even more than one, so we can now start building our server for the n8n automation software. And first thing I need to do is to go to that EC2 service. It's Elastic Compute Cloud within AWS. That's where you create your virtual servers. And then you choose the region where you want your server to be built. And it's your choice, but I will choose a region that is close to me, which is London, EU West 2 region. AWS will switch me to that region, and now I can build my virtual server. I say launch instance, this orange field, and now we are presented with that web page. We can choose a name for our server. I will just call it n8n. It doesn't really matter what you call it. It's just so you can recognize what it is. Then we scroll down and we can choose our operating system. And I want to run it on Ubuntu operating system. And our method today will work for any Ubuntu and Debian operating systems, and with a little adjustments it can work for any other systems really, but you will see later on what I mean. I choose Ubuntu, and I will choose Ubuntu version 22.04. Even though 24.04 is newer, I think 22.04 is more stable. It says that some of the changes will be removed or blah blah, but it doesn't really matter, you just confirm the changes. And this is our operating system now chosen for our server. So I scroll down, and here is the instance type, which is the size of my server. But now let me go back to that free tier. You can see here that the free tier, in your first year of opening AWS account, you have 750 hours every single month of T2 micro instance or T3 micro where T2 isn't available. And have a look here, it says free tier eligible. And that's what you want to choose, the one that you can run free of charge for a year. So for me it's T3 Micro, but you have to make sure that your operating system is also free tier eligible. And Ubuntu indeed is free tier eligible. So I've got operating system, I've got server type, and you can even see here, even after that year, it costs just 1 cent per hour to run it. Not bad, isn't it? But let's scroll down. Keeper. A keeper is so-called SSH key that you need to be able to log on to your server remotely. And I don't have a keeper. Oh, I've got some, but it doesn't really matter. You will not have any keepers, so what we need to click is that Create New Keeper. I'll click on that. We can choose a name for it. I will call mine n8n Keeper. Something like that. Again, doesn't really matter what you call it, it's just a name. So I say Create a Keeper. And look at that, it will download so-called private key to your local server. So you will find it in downloads, that n8nkeeper.pem. We will work with it later, but just remember that this has been downloaded from AWS automatically to your local server, whatever device you're using right now, I mean. That's the keeper. Keeper is sorted. We scroll down, and now we have network settings. And in network settings, we want to make sure the public IP address is enabled. We will need a public IP. And there are ways to run this server without public IP. You can, for example, configure Cloudflare tunnels, or you can use AWS CloudFront service and keep this server behind those services. And it is considered safer, but the way we will set up our server today can also be considered a safe solution. Why? Because allow SSH traffic, I will lock it down, not from anywhere, not that anybody can just log on to my server, I will change it to my IP. I will be only able to log on to my server and manage my server only from my current IP address, which is my home location. So I say allow SSH traffic from this IP. What's this IP address? If I go to the internet and I ask what is my IP, that's basically it. This is my IP address. We can see it finishes with 78, and indeed it's here 1778. That's my IP, and only I can access this server. That makes it pretty safe. We will want to add another option though for our security group. We want to allow HTTPS traffic from the internet to our server, because that's how we are going to access our n8n service over HTTPS protocol. So with those two settings, we are now fine. We also have public IP. We can scroll down. And by the way, that public IPv4 address that we configured, that we left enabled, that's also free of charge, or I mean 750 hours per month are free of charge. And here for storage, we can see that 30 gigabytes of EBS storage is also free of charge. By default we have it here set to 8, so I will change it to 30, because that's still free of charge. I will change the type to GP3. GP means general purpose. And you can see even here, free tier eligible customers can get up to 30 gig of EBS general purpose SSD. And GP3 is a newer version, so I choose GP3. And we have to click one more thing, is this advanced tab. And here, that little arrow, and I want to have it encrypted. And it's not optional, you have to have this so-called root volume, you have to have it encrypted, otherwise you will get error when creating a virtual server. It simply needs to be encrypted. And now that's all we really need. I can now click Launch Instance. So I just do that, and my instance is being created. It will only take a few seconds, and already done. It says successfully initiated launch of the instance. And this is my instance ID. If I click on that, it will take me straight to this instance, which means instance is a virtual server in the cloud. And that's it. I have all the details about my virtual server. I have two IP addresses allocated. This is so-called private IP address, but I'm more interested about my public IP address. And my public IP address is 13.40.28.247. If I click on those instances here in top left corner, I can indeed see my virtual server. The state is running, however the status check is still initializing. It might take a minute or two before it's fully up and running. But we don't have to wait for anything. Once it's ticked here, I can choose this connect button. I can click on that, go to that SSH client, and here we have a little instruction. It's instruction on how to connect to our server. It says open an SSH client, And for me, because I'm also on Ubuntu, this is my laptop, local laptop. It's also running, it's MacBook, but it's running Ubuntu in parallels. So it's a bit complicated, but never mind. Basically, if I go, first of all, if I run command pwd, that shows me my current location. My location, my folder I'm currently in is home parallels. So I can cd to downloads, and here I can run command ls-l, and I can see that private key that was created during the process in my downloads folder. I can also, you can also click these files, and if I go to downloads, that's basically the same location, right? It's n8n keeper.pem. Not sure what this file is, but we are concentrating on that one. And that n8n keeper is a private SSH key I want to use to connect to my server. And it says that if I want to connect to my server, I actually have to run this command first, change mod 400 and then this file. So I will copy this, and being in the same folder where my file is, I will just paste this command. What it does, if I run lsl, it changes the permission. It now only, this means that only the owner can read this file. Previously, it was read-write permission, so it changes the permission for this file. And it says that now I can connect to my server, and it gives me this example, ssh-y. I can copy it and paste it, but the fact is I will shorten it a bit here, because I don't have to use DNS, I can use public IP address as well. So I can do this, use just the public IP, and here is the location for this file. And full location is home, parallels, and this file. I know it's a bit confusing, but I can simply write something like home, parallels. This command, this full command, I can run it from anywhere. I don't even have to be in the same folder where this file is now, because I specified full path. And if I run this command now, it should take me to my server. I should log on to my server using this command. Let's press enter. I say yes. You have to say yes. It asks you if you are sure what you are connecting to. Yes, I know what I'm connecting to. Oh, it says permission denied. Oh, you know what? I'm stupid. And you are probably watching that and, Marek, what are you doing? It's not this location, home parallels, but then our key is in downloads, yes? Of course. Little mistake. Let's add that. Downloads. Basically, if I go here, sorry about that. This is where my key is. And the full path, if I click here, is home, parallels, downloads, and then this file. And now you can see a little lock here as well. That means it's locked only. It can only be read by current owner. And that's good. That was added when we changed that, when we ran that change mod command. Alright, let me try again. Anyways, press enter. We are going straight to our server. This is our server. This is private IP address, 18.151. I can double check. Let's click on that instance. Private IP is 18.151. That's correct. And if I run df-h, I can see indeed it's 30 gig. It's shown as 29 gigabytes, but it's basically 30 gig disk that we configured during the configuration process. Which means, yes, it's indeed my server in the cloud. And I can log on to it remotely from my home, because I'm logged on from my laptop, from my MacBook, and my server is in AWS Cloud. Maybe I will show you one more thing. Let me exit that. The command is just exit. I'm back on my laptop. I will use up arrow. This was the long command I had to use to log on to my server, yes? But what I can do, I can run command called alias, and then I can, let me make it bigger, wider, and I can call that alias something, maybe n8n. Then I say equals, and then a single quote. Then I have to go to the end and also add a single quote, which we will make all of that one long command. Now I press enter, and if I run now alias, that's basically it. That's my alias. And what this alias does, I can now simply type n8n. Instead of running ssh-i ubuntu blah blah blah, I can now simply say n8n, and that n8n will run this long command for me. Let me show you. I press enter, and bam, I'm straight back on my cloud server. Let me clear that maybe. And now it's always considered a best practice if you run sudo apt-get update and sudo apt-get upgrade. and then I add -y, which will answer yes to any possible questions. And what it does, it will simply update all packages and all software that this current server is running on. I just press enter, and I just wait. That upgrade is optional, I would say, but apt-get update, that first command, is definitely something you want to run every time you build a new server. Now it asks me to restart some services, which is fine. I just use tab button to switch to that OK, and now press enter, and that process is completed. But, which is another good practice, you want to reboot the server right now. I say sudo reboot. Press enter. You will be obviously disconnected from the server now, but you only have to wait like 20-30 seconds maybe, and then we can log on back to our server. And remember now, I only have to run command n8n, which is our alias for that long command. Maybe 15 seconds passed, let me try already, press enter. Oh, we're already back in. If I say uptime, our server is up 0 minutes, because it was just rebooted. That's all for our server build. Now we start configuring the n8n service on this server. What I will do then, I will go to Google. We are done with AWS for now, but we will get back to this service. For now, I say n8n AWS, something like that. I just simply need official documentation from n8n. If I click on that first link, it will take me to server setups for Amazon Web Services. And you might think that this is what we need, but this is to run n8n on another AWS service called Elastic Kubernetes Service. And Kubernetes is like a cluster that can auto-scale. That's not what we need. What we will use today is a Docker Compose option. I will click on that Docker Compose, and basically this is the option that you can use for any other provider as well. I configured the server in AWS, but you can use Docker Compose approach for any other cloud solution. Like if you have your server in DigitalOcean or Hetzner or Azure, you can follow exactly the same steps like we are doing here. Let's have a look what they say here then. And they say here install Docker and Docker Compose. And there are many commands, but what you can do, you can simply click on that square icon that says copy to clipboard. We will copy all those commands, and in fact first command is also apt-get update. Even twice, you can see. But what it will do, it will install everything we need on our server. I mean, Docker and Docker Compose at least. So I go back to the terminal and I simply paste it. All commands are here, I just press enter. And wait. Looks like they didn't add that -y, that's why you have to manually type yes. Yes, I want to continue, press enter again. And that's job done. We go back to that website. We have installed Docker and Docker Compose, so scroll further. It asks to verify if the Docker and Docker Compose were installed properly. We can run Docker version. We can basically click that copy to clipboard again. I'll go back to my server, maybe clear first, and paste it there. And we can see we have Docker version 28.3.3 and the Docker Compose version 2.39.1, which means they are both installed and ready for us to use. Now we can scroll further. It says optional, non-root user access. And you know what? It's a good option. You will not have to use that sudo every time when you run Docker commands. It's not a big deal, it's optional, but I will just copy to clipboard, go back again, paste, enter, and that's job done. We can go further. And here we have DNS setup, and it says to host n8n online or on a network, create a dedicated subdomain pointed at your server. And I know it might sound scary, but it's actually a pretty simple process. But what we need is a subdomain. And to get subdomain, we need to first buy a domain. And as I said, there are ways to get a domain free of charge, but I'm not really a fan of that approach. I'd rather pay $2 or $3 and have a proper domain from AWS. What I will do then, I will go back to AWS. I will need different service now. The service is called Route53. You can search here for that Route53. You click on that, and you are presented with that web page. Let's click on that Get Started. And it says register a domain. You have other options, but no, we exactly need this option, register a domain. So I again say get started. and the domain is like google.com or youtube.com, I will search for n8n. Let's see what's available, because it says check availability for a domain. I will search, and I can see n8n.com is not available. Somebody already purchased that. But here below we have some options. But I already can see they're all expensive. I'm not gonna pay $15 for a domain. I could have it as n8n.red for $23, but I'm not happy with these prices. I can tick here those standard pricing, and here I can sort them according to price. And now you can see that domain that finishes with .click is the cheapest. It costs only $3 a year. It's a price per year, so it makes it 25 cents per month, yes? Let's see if n8n.click is available then. I will search for n8n.click, and unfortunately it is not. n8n.click is not available. But n9n.click is available, and it costs $3. And I know it might not be perfect, even pronunciation n9n.click, but I don't care. You can search further and further, personalize it more, but I will just pick this one. $3, I'm happy with that. I say select. It says the domain registration fee is $3, and I'm happy with that. I proceed to checkout. And here you can choose if you want this domain to be automatically renewed every year. And no, I'm not happy with that. This is basically just my test, so I will just run it for a year. It will cost me $3, and close to the end of that year, I will get a notification that this domain will expire if I want to renew it or not. But I will not renew it, so I'm okay with this setting, and it can simply expire in 1 year. I just say next, and contact type, I say person, and I put my personal details here. Fill that in, I say next. Now just a confirmation, I say I have read and agreed to domain registration agreement, and I submit. It says the request is in progress, and it might take several minutes, but usually it's pretty quick. I can refresh it here. Oh, so I clicked hosted zones, and it's already shown in hosted zone. Because when you register domain, you will also have hosted zone created, and it looks like it's already here. Like if I click on my domain, this first part is already done. It might take a few more minutes to be shown up in registered domains as well, but really, hosted zone is something I'm even more interested. You will see shortly why. Because if we go back to that website and follow the instructions further, what we now have to do is to create a subdomain and point it to server IP address as a type record. That's what they say, yes? And all that means is that I have to go back to my Route53, to hosted zones, to my domain n9n.click, and I create a record. And they said it needs to be a type record, which is chosen by default anyways. The value is the public IP address of our server. So if I go back to my server, this is my public IP address. And by the way, if you go to the server itself, if you run curl ifconfig me, that's basically the same information. That's your public IP address. I will copy it from here. It's .28.247. If I go here, .28.247. It's alternative way of getting your public IP address. And now I go to that Route53 and I want to paste it here. And now this is my domain. It's called n9n.click, and whatever I put here is so-called subdomain. You can add multiple records by adding something in front of your domain. I will call it maybe server1. So basically what I create now is server1.n9n.click, and that record will point to this IP address. That's what they want. I say create records, and this record has been created for me. We can see it here, which means now I can go back to Docker Compose, configuration setup, and we can follow further steps. It says create an .env file. It says create a directory, make a directory, and then cd into that directory. Alright, I will go back to my server, but I'm currently in home directory on the remote server, which is home Ubuntu. And it's up to you where you want to create that folder they are talking about, but it should be somewhere within that home directory, I would say. So I'll go back and I will copy both those commands. Paste them here. This one created the folder, and this one took me into that folder. If I run pwd now, I'm in home Ubuntu n8n compose folder now. Let's go back, and they say inside the n8n compose directory, create .env file to customize your n8n instance details. So what I want to do is copy this, all of that again. I go back to my cloud server and I say nano.env. Nano is a text editor. It will create .env file for me. Enter. It will be empty though. So I can right click and paste what they asked us to paste. But what I have to change now, my domain name, I bought a domain, yes, but the domain name was called n9n.click. This was a domain, and server 1 was a subdomain. So I have to go back, and I say subdomain is server 1. And now the time zone, this is not correct for me. I am in Europe, but in London. And that's where my server is created anyways. And SSL email, I also want to change to the actual email I want to use for that. That's some testing email I created for that purpose. And I say now Ctrl O to write it out, now Enter, and Ctrl X to exit. This file is now created. And I can run cat.env just to check if everything is correct. But it looks like it's correct. n9n.click is my domain, server 1 was my subdomain. Time zone, you can look up, you can Google simply what are available time zones. I remember that mine is Europe, London, and email whatever email you want to use. That's it. So we go back, this is done now. Next step, they say, create local files directory inside your project directory, and we are still in that project directory. This is what they mean, n8n compose. We created in previous step. We are still there, so I just copy that command, I paste it, and if I run lsl now, we have created another folder inside n8n compose folder. Let's go back and let's go further. It asks us to create compose.yaml file. Paste the following in the file. I copy everything again. I go back here. I say nano compose.yaml. This will create file compose.yaml and I will be able to edit it. I press enter and I paste all the output again. And it's pretty long output, and what it does really, it installs and runs two Docker containers, traefik and n8n, and it uses the so-called variables that we configured in previous file .env. For example, this SSL email, this value will be read from the previous file. That's why it's so important that we have it configured correctly. And if we scroll down, you can see subdomain, domain name, this is also information, and here again domain name, this is information that we also included in that previous .env file. And what it also does, even though the n8n itself runs on port 5678, this Docker Compose will secure our traffic and we can connect to our server via traffic on port 443, which is HTTPS. And it's considered secure. But this is all the extra information, you don't have to worry about it. You simply can run again Ctrl O, Enter, Ctrl X. And if you had everything configured correctly in the previous file, in this one, you don't have to study really what that compose YAML does. For your convenience, I also created a PDF document that you can download, free of charge of course. That document will include all steps and all commands that I run here today. Because I know it's quite a lot of information involved here in the process, but you can just grab that document using the link below, and I hope that might help you to follow all of these steps involved. You can also check out entire Automation Avenue platform if you want to learn more about n8n or AWS Cloud or Python programming, etc. Just go to automationavenue.com and have a look around. But let's go back to our setup now. We go back to these instructions, scroll further, and this is just little instruction, what it will do. But if we scroll even further, we can start Docker Compose now. It says sudo docker compose app-d. I will copy it again. Let's go here, paste, press enter, and everything should work. And honestly, we didn't even have to run that sudo, because we ran that previous command, which should run Docker Compose with no sudo. but I'm lazy, I just pasted it, so doesn't really matter. The images are being downloaded for Traefik and for n8n, and once we have them locally, the service should start. It might take several minutes even, so let's just wait. It took less than a minute actually for me, and it says we have 2 containers running, we have 2 volumes created, and 1 network was created. And we can confirm it, we can say docker ps. That shows us that we have 2 Docker containers running indeed. One is n8n and one is Traefik. They are up for 41 seconds. And we can also run docker volume ls. And indeed we can see that 2 Docker volumes were created. That makes this service up and running. And remember, we are still on this cloud server, but now I should be able to access my service from anywhere in the world. Not only from this laptop, but from any other laptop as well. And to access my n8n, I should simply go to this website. Let me copy it. Let's have a look. https:// and I paste my server1.n8n.click. Press enter. Some browsers will show you this information, some will not. You have to go to advanced, accept risk and continue, but it's really not a risk. I will show you what it is. But you can see it works, yes? This is my n8n platform and I can use it from anywhere just by going to this URL. And what that error was about, have that little log. It says connection not secure. It is secure, but if you click that more information, it says this website does not supply ownership information. And my domain has ownership information. It's simply how it's resolved here in that Docker, in that Traefik, and how Let's Encrypt gives us the SSL cert for this service. It's a bit complicated, but what I mean, some browsers will display that error, but some browsers will simply ignore that and you will not even notice anything. Believe me, this connection is secure because it says HTTPS. You have SSL TLS encryption for that traffic between you and your server in the cloud. And that's our setup completed. Remember, if you want to learn more about n8n or AWS or many other IT-related topics, please visit that Automation Avenue platform that I mentioned, because you will find hours and hours of very useful materials. So thank you for watching.